Following the Nashville school shooting, Democrats are pushing for improved gun safety, while Republicans like Josh Hawley are hypocritically trying to push a hate crime investigation. I'm Gabe Sanchez, and you can watch more What Was That commentary on my Patreon at whatwasthatshow.com. Now, for more on Josh Hawley's racist hypocrisy, it's time for What Was That? When it comes to mass shootings, Josh Hawley lethargically stands by without a care for human life, especially innocent children. And recently, when he was asked by CNN about keeping Americans safe with tougher restrictions on assault weapons, this is what he had to say.
Why are you opposed to reinstating this ban?
Well, I mean, a lot of people use ARs and AKs for sporting purposes. I've fired both of those things, so both of those firearms for sporting purposes. But listen, let's stay focused on the issue at hand, which isn't some generic question about guns. It's what happened to these children in this school by this shooter.
What happened to these children? Are we really going to ask ourselves that question? I mean, it's simple. They were killed by a deadly assault weapon that was legally purchased. Josh Hawley doesn't want to talk about the real issue, which is the guns. It's always been the guns. Or the fact that restrictions on assault weapons actually work. He wants to rebrand deadly assault weapons and semi-automatic rifles as something that's only used for sport. Which is weird because it sure seems like the go-to weapon in these mass shootings is the AR-15. Uvalde, Buffalo, Boulder, Orlando, Parkland, Las Vegas, Sandy Hook, I mean, the list goes on. Our country has a disgusting fetish with bigger and powerful guns, and as a result, innocent children are dying. The Republican Party's whole identity is wrapped up in guns and the Second Amendment, and anything that threatens that is the real problem. An example of this is when Josh Hawley took to the Senate floor to give a speech about the Nashville school shooting.
Today, I have called on the Director of the FBI and the Secretary of Homeland Security to open a federal investigation, a federal hate crime investigation into what happened in Nashville. We need the facts, Mr. President. We need to know about the premeditated crime. We need to know about what this shooter did and intended to do. We need to know about the influences. What kind of violent rhetoric motivated this shooter? Were there others involved? This contagion of hateful rhetoric and violence must not be allowed to spread, Mr. President, and that is why we need all federal resources, according to federal law, devoted now on the ground in Nashville to get the facts and to stop the violence from spreading further. And I call on this body, every member of this body, to condemn in the clearest of terms this hate crime against this community in Nashville. Today, I will introduce a resolution explicitly condemning this massacre as the hate crime that it is, and calling upon this body to condemn hateful rhetoric that leads to violence.
Wait, what was that?
I will introduce a resolution explicitly condemning this massacre as the hate crime that it is, and calling upon this body to condemn hateful rhetoric that leads to violence.
This is the most fired up that I've ever seen Josh Hawley. I mean, other than the time that he cowardly ran away from the January 6 rioters that he riled up. But Josh Hawley's sudden urge to get the FBI and the DHS to investigate this shooting as a hate crime is very interesting, especially because in 2021, Hawley voted against the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act that would expedite the review of hate crimes during a rise in anti-Asian attacks. And just so you know, Hawley was the only, and I mean only, person to oppose it, and this was his reasoning. My big problem with Senator Hirono's bill that Senate voted on today is that it turns the federal government into the speech police, gives government sweeping authority to decide what counts as offensive speech and then monitor it, raises big free speech questions. Look, there is a big difference between free speech and hate speech, and it would seem like Josh Hawley wants people to be able to freely harass Asian people. Just so you know, Josh Hawley never condemned the hate and violence that was targeted toward the Asian community. And now that I think about it, I don't remember Josh Hawley condemning the hate that led to the Club Q shooting, or the Pulse nightclub shooting, or even the Buffalo supermarket shooting. You know, the one where the shooter left behind a manifesto that explicitly stated his motive behind killing 10 black people. Josh Hawley's hypocrisy is on full display as he's inconsistent on the issue of hate crimes and violence. And we definitely can't ignore Josh Hawley's intent with this Senate speech, which was to rile up his base with fear-mongering and transphobia.
Mr. President, we must also tell the truth about what happened yesterday in Nashville. This murderous rampage, this taking of innocent life, was a horrific crime, but more specifically, it was a hate crime. A crime that, according to Nashville police, specifically targeted, that's their word, targeted the members of this Christian community, the members of this religious institution, its students, its educators, its employees. Let's be clear, Mr. President, federal law prohibits the targeting of violence against any American on the basis of religious affiliation or religious practice or religious belief. But that is, according to police, exactly what we saw happen yesterday. The members of this community were singled out because of their religious affiliation.
The Nashville police never said that the trans shooter targeted the members of this Christian community because of their religious beliefs. What the Nashville police actually said was that the school and church were targets, but the shooter fired indiscriminately at victims. So while the authorities are still figuring out the shooter's motive, Josh Hawley might want to be careful about what he's asking for. And no matter how many mass shootings we have, Republicans won't give two shits about us. They only send thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, the first thing in any kind of tragedy I do is, as I pray for the victims, pray for their families.
And at the end of the day, Josh Hawley is a coward and a fraud who will never actually help the victims of these tragedies. Especially since Josh Hawley is in the NRA's pocket receiving almost $1.4 million from the gun group alone. The only real way to get Josh Hawley and his fellow Republican sellouts out of the way is to vote them out of office in 2024. Because it's important to remember that your vote has the power to enact real change. Well, thanks so much for watching another episode of What Was That? If you'd like to get access to exclusive bonus content and watch more What Was That commentary, make sure to join my Patreon at whatwasthatshow.com. So until next episode, I'm Gabe Sanchez, and this has been What Was That?